I thought it was a joke.
Humiliating.
Gross exaggeration.
The Victorian government.
The fallout has been fierce, but Victorian Premier Daniel Andrews is standing by his decision.
You're asking me to apologise for cancelling the Games, and I'm not doing that.
The cancellation has had some scratching their heads.
It almost felt like ending up in an episode of Utopia, to be honest.
And left athletes reeling.
Yeah, obviously a little bit disappointing from our point of view.
As one of Australia's fiercest fighters and a former Commonwealth Games boxing captain, Christy Harris is used to taking hits. But she was left winded.
These people are meant to be professionals, they're meant to know what's going on.
The decisions left the Victorian government ducking and weaving blows at home.
This is because Victoria is broke. We are a failed state, and it's because of the incompetence of this government. In any other state, somebody would resign.
And abroad.
The state's premier said the projected cost had now tripled.
The 12-day competition was scrapped amid claims the event could cost an eye-watering $7 billion. But that's being disputed by Commonwealth Games officials.
Why are we looking at, scaling down the event but still hosting it, but doing it at a much less cost?
Other games have been held for far less.
Our budget in Queensland was $1.2 billion for the Commonwealth Games. Queensland government insisted on us sticking within that budget. We did that.
The massive cost blowouts were fuelled by the government's ambitious plan to hold the Games across 4 regional cities, including here in Ballarat, which was gearing up to host the marathon through this main street. The plan would have involved building 2 Olympic swimming pools in Geelong and then demolishing them after the Games. Many questions remain unanswered, including how much has been spent on the Games so far and how much it'll cost taxpayers to rip up the contract.
And I'm not going to speculate about the negotiation. I'm not going to speculate on what that is. I'm not going to cut across the negotiations that are going on.
Paying the price for buyer's remorse.
Just a year after Birmingham passed the hosting baton to Victoria, it's game over.
Absolutely shocked that the Cabinet has made this decision and it hasn't come back to the board.
It's a clean start.
The Games' governing body said it was blindsided by the announcement, but denied this was the beginning of the end for the multi-sport event.
This is a major setback, but we will be working as quick as possible to replace Victoria as 2026.
That may not be so easy. Victoria was only confirmed last year after officials struggled to find a host. And Birmingham had to step up when Durban in South Africa was stripped of the event over its own financial issues.
Have these games become too big and too expensive?
Perceptions of them are certainly too big and too expensive. When you look back to the early games, they were almost like a county fair.
There's already been one offer to host the Games.
Now that Victoria have said enough's enough, let's see if we can jump in there.
But the New Zealand Olympic Committee was quick to rule the country out. There's now speculation Birmingham could stage a second Games in a row. The 2022 event cost $1.3 billion, but one of England's gold medal winning stars is adamant it was worth it.
As from an athlete point of view, it just means everything, and it's an event I will never forget.
The Empire Games opens with
Once known as the Empire Games, rising Republican sentiment around the Commonwealth is also threatening the future of the event.
I do think it's the end of the Games as we've known it. It needs a fresh identity.
Meanwhile, the UK's Prime Minister says he hopes that Australia and the Commonwealth Games Foundation can find a solution. He's rejected the notion that this shows the Commonwealth's fading influence.
With just 3 years to go, the race is on to find a new host.
The mighty MCG, the State Aquatic Centre, the Netball and Hockey Centre and the Melbourne Park Precinct. Victoria already has world-class sporting infrastructure. So why didn't the government move the now cancelled Commonwealth Games to these premier stadiums?
MCG looking absolutely magnificent.
Venues where the same event was successfully staged in 2006.
Doing it in Melbourne was probably the cheapest option, and it was still well over $4 billion.
One government estimate for staging the Games in Melbourne put the operational costs at more than $1.5 billion, along with $1 billion more for temporary facilities, transport and police costs. Another $500 million was allocated for accommodation for athletes and staff in hotels and displacement costs for other sports like the AFL. They're using the MCG.
They're full of tenants, they're full of scheduled competition.
But the government's numbers have raised eyebrows. Multiple industry insiders say the numbers appear inflated and are gobsmacked that the Games haven't been moved to Melbourne to utilise existing infrastructure. They've also accused the government of failing to do their homework and failing to engage with the sector. The opposition wants the financial watchdog to get involved, calling on the Auditor-General to probe the cost to taxpayers.
We're going to get to the bottom of this. It's simply not acceptable.
Every Victorian has a right to know how that cost blowout got to where it is.
The boss of the Gold Coast Games, which was staged 5 years ago for $1.2 billion, has some advice for his Labor colleagues.
It's easier to run these events in Melbourne, Brisbane and Sydney. There are extra costs to run them in the regions. But the key to it is, once you get a budget, you've got to stick to it.
But it seems it was one race the government wasn't willing to run.